Hello, CFI sweetheart. How is your weekend? Oh my God, mine is crazy. I have had a very difficult weekend, but I just have to keep my promise to you guys that I will be consistent, and no matter what, I will have to record and produce this podcast so that you can get something out of it. So today is episode 24 of our Coming For You podcast, aka CFI official podcast, with me, your host Maximiliana. And today I have a very special guest. We met here in abroad, in Ireland to be specific. Our conversation is going to base on issues to do with career development. And yeah, so I hope you're going to get something out of this conversation. So, Dr. Robert Runya Muzungu, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for accepting to be in our podcast today, Robert. This means a lot to us. I just want us to dive deep into career development. I know because we are here in abroad, we have a privilege of having both experience from Africa and here in Europe. So how was it for you to shift from having a career in Africa and also having a career here in abroad?
Well, I don't know if I should call it a shift, or I would say it's just part of my career journey. Really, it wasn't like a shift. I never made any shift in terms of switching careers. But of course, there was the aspect of the geographical shift from coming from tropics, and now I'm in Europe, which is in temperate region. So of course, there's been differences in the kind of systems, in the kind of expertise that is applied back at home and here. So I would say it's been challenging in one way, and another way it's been great as well. So I've had both my lows and high moments in this journey. Yep.
Can you take us through your lows and your highs? Because it's obvious that we need a little bit ambitious when it comes to career development and our career path, especially when we are coming from Africa.
Well, first of all, I would say, I think for me, move to Ireland, generally the wider island of Ireland, to do my PhD in Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. But I never anticipated that I will end up working here. That wasn't the initial goal, or rather, I hadn't really set up my mind in terms of where I would work. I was really very open-minded. So, of course, the loss came in through doing a PhD during COVID and having to go through, the cultural, the social cultural shift in terms of not being able to socialize like the way we used to socialize. We had like almost 2.5 years of COVID where a lot of things happened, and I would say I was mainly in isolation for a better part of that time. And then, of course, having to go through the challenge of doing a PhD in itself, it was draining, I would say. So first of all, let me just appreciate to say that it was a great moment for me to be able to do a project that I really enjoyed. But the thing is, in as much as there was the bit where I really enjoyed doing the project, but it was also challenging, both mentally, physically, and also emotionally, because you're always faced with this issue of not believing in yourself enough. You always feel like you're not adequate, imposter syndrome coming in and out. So in the beginning, it's kind of like a struggle trying to fight imposter syndrome. But then later on, you realize you're not alone in that journey, or you're not alone facing a similar thing, because even we had this chat with my professor, and he will also mention from time to time that this is a very common thing. They will also face that. So in the process, then I started embracing some of these insecurities and feelings. And I would say a combination of that and my highs, being able to pursue a project that I was so passionate about, me being very resilient even through COVID and even through the mental challenges of doing a PhD. I would say that combination for me really made the person that I am today.
That's very interesting, Robert. I like that you mentioned the issues to do with emotional challenges, and which people don't talk about a lot of times. You mentioned the imposter syndrome. Not everybody admits it, and it happens to us almost every time. So how were you able to achieve normacy?
Well, of course, it's a combination of self-reflection. So first of all, I do lots of self-reflection whenever I'm faced with such type of challenges. So of course, through self-reflection, it kind of like helped me really to be able to identify where I needed help and what kind of help that I needed. And of course, it helps to identify the right people to seek help from. So, of course, I had a very good team of supervisors and advisors, which to me, I consider them more of mentors than supervisors. And they were very open, I would say. They kept the lines of communication very open throughout the whole journey of the PhD. And whenever I had like even a personal issue, I would discuss this with them, and they'll be very happy to share a thing or two with me. So then, of course, I also had a very good team of a group of friends whom we were together in this same journey. And I think being in that group and being able to share the day-to-day struggles of doing my PhD and also being far away from home, I would say gave me that platform also to be able to express myself and embrace those weaknesses and embrace my own insecurities in such a way, but also being able to actually have a community, because I think one of the challenges that a lot of people face whenever you are abroad is you're far away from home, and that means in a way you need to have a community, because I think for us coming from the tropics, or rather in Africa, we live in a community. We're very communal in a lot of the things, and that sense of community for me is something that I would say has always kept me going, because wherever I go, I always try as much as possible to build a community around myself. And it doesn't matter how many friends there could be like 2 or 3, but as long as we have a very tight, strong community, even with my 2 or 3 friends, to me that is also like a form of security that I have, because I know where, just meeting them, sharing a meal, or even talking to me, that really does magic to my mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy for you. I'm very happy for you, Robert, for you were able to achieve all that. So now let's discuss about the systems and the resources available here in Europe in comparison to Africa, because you know that the system back home, the way it is, coming from Tanzania, and I know that you are coming from Kenya. So how can you define the difference that you've seen of the systems of career path and the resources available?
I'll say there's quite a lot of differences in a lot of areas. So first of all, you finish school, and then of course the expectation is that you're looking for a job. So I think, talking from the experience in Kenya, we are now moving towards a full digital transformation. So what that means is a lot of the jobs will be easily available online. There are several job sites, even in Kenya, that you can actually find jobs. Because initially people would actually buy newspapers. That was like the mainstream media was through newspapers, where you'll see at the classifieds, they had a job section under the classified section of every newspaper, and you'll be able to send a job application through mail, or even just sending the hard copy application to the respective institution that you want to apply for. But things have really changed then and those years and now, to the point where I would say that's the similarity. I'm able actually to send an application to any job, even in Kenya, online or just via email, which is really a good thing. But the differences I would say to me here about Europe is in the sense that there's a lot of it's very structured, and meritocracy also comes in as a very important aspect of the system. So from my experience, for instance, when I finished my PhD, or just before I finished my PhD, I started looking for the job, trying to map out different opportunities and different sites, and trying to be able to map out the areas that we want to focus on in terms of job search. So one of my first resource was LinkedIn. Of course, LinkedIn was very fantastic, and that allowed me to search for jobs based on a title and also based on location as well. So because I was very open to work anywhere in the world, so that kind of opened me up to a lot of opportunities through LinkedIn. Again, on LinkedIn, I had the chance also of interacting with recruiters directly, and I could actually message them and be able to share my CV and my profile, just to make sure that to inquire if they have similar roles around my area. That is something that I would say probably in Kenya we've not gotten to the point where now you can easily interact with recruiters directly on LinkedIn, for instance. Yes, you could apply for jobs on LinkedIn, but in terms of getting recruiters, there are probably 1 or 2 people doing that. But it's not like compared to what I experienced here. And then the other site that I used personally was Indeed. Indeed was one of the sites. Then there was Glassdoor. Then there was also the local recruiters, like Hayes, for instance, is one of the recruiters that you could fill a profile create an account with them, and they will actually, a recruiter in a particular field or rather in the field that you're in, after reviewing your profile, they'll actually contact you in case there's an available position around your area and discuss the possibility of you getting through an interview. So I would say having all these options, to me, that's something that I really love about this place. And the fact that if you qualify, if you have the skills and you're given the opportunity to interview, then usually the interview is an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you have the skills and expertise in this particular area. And the fact that the whole selection process, basically from when you submit an application to when you are considered for the interview to the job, a lot of the applications I've actually made, some of them actually they have moved to, so like in Kenya, for instance, if I was to make an application, a lot of that they will also retain your bio data. That also includes like your age, your gender, your probably ethnicity sometimes, where you're coming from, and this in a way might either work for you or against you. But here in Europe, that data may be collected during the application process, but for a lot of the time, some application, they will also, towards the end, they will also ask you if you want data to be maintained or you don't want it to be used in the selection process. And a lot of the time it's like anonymous, so which gives the recruiter an objective opportunity, or an opportunity for them to be objective in their selection process, where they will only consider you based on your skills and the education. And they wouldn't, for a lot of them, they wouldn't even know that you're coming from Africa, or you're a man, or you're a male, you're female, or they wouldn't know some of this information until the time when you're during the interview. So I think that is part of a lot of these institutions have like a diversity and inclusion policies, even, and some of these policies are also embedded into the recruitment process, which is something I would say we've not, if I compare that to Kenya, it might be there on paper, but in practice it's not being implemented, to be honest. So those are some of the differences.
Yeah, you analyze that very well. I don't think I would have done a better job of analyzing that difference very well, Dr. Robert. I noted that you said at least you are flexible to work anywhere in the world. What a privilege that is. And so now my question is it difficult for someone who does not have a privilege like you to get a job here in Europe or even back home?
First of all, you have to understand that in as much as our education system was heavily borrowed from the British system. But this is not from my experience, but from the information that I've gathered, at least from people, from friends, and also reading. There's a bit of some mistrust in our education system by, let's say, employers here. Unless you have, the specialized skills, and even for the specialized skills, for instance, I'll give an example for medical doctors. For them even to come and practice here, they have to be put through test. Like in the UK they have PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 test, and the fact that they have to be put through those tests does, for them to be licensed to operate here, it does not make them less skilled, because they've gone through the education system. They passed the exams while in Kenya, but the thing is, why do they have to be put through that? So in a way it's like they have to prove that they can. So there's that bit of levels of mistrust, because even ignore that. A lot of there's been complaints, of course, even in terms of having to subject people looking who have like a student visa, or who are applying for a student visa or a work visa. They are being subjected to do an English proficiency exam, the IELTS or TOEFL, and very well, at least for the countries that were colonized with the British, our education system is fully more
or less similar
in terms of the language of instruction. English actually is a formal language of instruction. From kindergarten all the way to university. So the question is, why then do I need to prove that I can actually communicate in English when I was already tested in school? So the question is it an issue of mistrust, or is it just a money-making business for some countries? And we never do the same for people who are coming to, let's say, Nairobi to work, like from Europe. We never submit them to some of those examinations. I would say there is a lot of experts and professionals from Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana, who are working here and who never had the opportunity to get education abroad. Like they spend their undergrad or even masters or even PhDs in Africa and still were able to secure a job here. At the end of the day, it boils down to how you package yourself.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. Whether, regardless of where you got your education, as long as you package yourself well and you're able to demonstrate that indeed you're skilled in that particular profession or that particular job you're applying for, then personally I don't see any reason as to why you shouldn't be given the opportunity to at least demonstrate that either through an interview or even the job. So I would say for a lot of people, of course, it's also a mix of fear and not being also confident enough on themselves.
Yeah.
So otherwise, to be honest, even when I never had this opportunity to study here, I don't think that would have been a hindrance for me to try and seek opportunities abroad. If I wanted, I would still be able to do that.
Okay, now I love the fact that you touch base on how you package yourself, because we discuss about resources and we discuss about the system and the differences between, Africa and Europe. But now let's talk about people's attitude. As you mentioned, how you package yourself. What is your attitude toward a certain, field of study that you studied? Are you confident enough? So how do you advise people to package themselves? Because I was there too. At some point in my life, my CV was like, it was not good. Yeah. I just had to sit down and, update it and learn how to write a good CV.
Yeah.
My motivation letters were just like, there, random. But now I had to learn how do I put my motivation letter, so that I present myself to an employer and that employer understands that I am interested in that job, I'm qualified for that job, and I can do the job.
Well, this is very general. I'll still speak based on my experience. I've had opportunity to be interviewed a couple of times. Of course, some went negative, some were positive. But the whole essence of the application process of being able to write a CV, writing a cover letter, is actually for you to show, or rather to kind of like fight a chance for the interview. Because for a lot of time, the decision, if the whole process is fair and transparent, the decision to hire you won't be based on the application you make, but a lot of that decision is actually made immediately after the interview. So which means whatever you submit this is how you look at it, right? Imagine yourself as a brand. You're a product actually, because whenever you are applying for a job, it's like you're selling a product. So if you're selling a product for even the client, in this case, the organization that you're applying for, who is now the client in this case, because you are selling yourself as a product, they will look at how you brand yourself. And part of that branding also involves the packaging. But remember, you've not had a chance to meet the recruiter or the employer. The only chance that you have is through that application. That's your first point of contact. And the impression that you make during that first point of contact will determine whether you get a second chance for the interview, which is going to be your second point of contact, like either physical or virtual, but that's going to be the second point of interview if you manage to secure a slot for the interview. So what that means is, personally, I always have 3 templates for CV. I have a template for, let's say, if I'm applying for an academic or research job. I have a template if I'm applying for an academic job, maybe in the industry. And I have a template if I'm applying for, let's say, a consulting role. And the way I deal with these 3 templates is that I usually tailor-make it to the job. So first of all, I see an advert. I will first of all look at the job description. I'll look at what is required. And then before I even make an application, I usually do a self-assessment. If I meet the minimum criteria, so let's say they have like 10 responsibilities, and out of those 10, I can do maybe 50%. That's I qualify for 50%, and then the 5%, 50% left, I can gamble in between. I'll go ahead and make that application. So of course, what I'm trying to say is, don't disqualify yourself. Let the recruiter disqualify you, but don't disqualify yourself. But also don't oversell yourself. There are those jobs, you can imagine you just left for university, but then you want to apply for a director position or a CEO position. It's not possible. It's not possible. So you always have to be very realistic also, but dare to dream, of course, dare to dream. And so I usually look at the verbs in the description. So the verbs could include like coordinate, manage, plan, organize, analyze. And I pick those verbs in every job, in every responsibilities, in every line of the responsibilities, and I'll make sure those verbs are actually reflected. So if, for instance, the job description mentions that I need to be able to analyze using this particular program, then I'll make sure in my CV it reads analyze this data using this program. It could be a different program, but at least I'll make sure the analyze is there. The reason why I'm saying this is because nowadays, a lot of the organizations receive thousands of applications.
Yeah, and they use computer software to tailor the thing.
So what happens for a lot of the times is they want to spend very little time to sift through these thousands of applications and make a very quick decision on who should be invited for the interview. So most of this will actually go through softwares.
Yeah.
And they will check for keywords.
Yeah.
So they will do a match between your CV, your cover letter, and the job description. And for whatever reason, if they set the match percentage to be, let's say, 80% match, so if there's an 80% match between the job description and your CV and cover letter, then you qualify for the interview.
Yeah.
If for some reason they realize, okay, after setting that criteria, they still have a lot of people and they only want maybe 20 people for the interview, they can take it higher to 90%.
Yeah.
So which means the higher the matching between your CV and the advert, the better for you. You know, so I always advise people, always make sure there's something that matches directly with the job description. So don't just you can have a template, but never use the same CV, never use the same cover letter to apply for every single job. Because every single job brings forth a different set of requirements.
Yeah.
You know, different organizations will be looking for different things. It could be the same job in different organizations, but looking for different things. So always mirror the job description in your application.
Yeah.
That will guarantee you a chance for an interview. And that has always worked for me. And I had to learn the hard way because, you know, sometimes you realize you spend a lot of time making applications and then you recycle the same CV, you recycle the same cover letter, and then you just change the title and dates and the address on your letter, only to realize that you're not getting even regret letters to say that, oh, we received your application. So it can be very frustrating in the end. But I think after talking to people or, you know, my colleagues who were ahead of me in this journey, then I learned a thing or two and, you know, also did my own research. So always research on the organization. Make sure that you tailor make your application that will fully address the job description.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I also had to learn the hard way and take a lot of time. First of all, you need to accept that you have to learn because not everyone accept that they need to learn. They think they know everything already because they have masters, they have PhD, so they feel like, okay, now I can get a job. They are entitled because of their titles of like doctors and masters holders. Thank you so much, Robert, for sharing that valid information with us. I think our CFI sweethearts are going to enjoy this conversation and of course get something out of it. I also had a recent interview and trust me, I had to apply all the things that you said there. Tailor my CV very well, matching with the position that I was applying for, and everything went well. And so it's about learning every day. So do you have any other thing that you need to add there, Robert, before we close the episode?
Just to add on that is also check with the organization. And check on the country you're applying for. Let's say if you are looking for international roles, different countries sometimes have different CV formats that they mostly prefer. And you can always do a quick Google search just to check which is the most common CV to be used in a particular organization or in a particular country. And, you know, try to fit your CV based on those formats. And you can easily find templates. And never make a last-minute application. You know, you want to take your time to package yourself. As again, I said, you are the product here. So for the client to be able to even give you a chance to kind of like look at your product, first of all, they have to make sure that your packaging is good enough and it's attractive.
Yep.
So before they even start asking about the product and inquiring what the product does or what the product is able to do, it's the packaging. And the only way to package is through your CV. So always do your research and never undersell yourself.
Absolutely. I quite agree with you, Robert. Thank you very much. In addition to that, is also to let people know that you can't apply one job and say, I've applied jobs and so now I've been looking for jobs for this year. I've not gotten any job, any interview. No, sweetie. No, sweetheart. Apply for as many jobs as you can and make sure that you pick the ones that are relevant to you. Don't just apply for jobs to make yourself feel good that you applied for a job or you are looking for a job. So applying jobs is a job. Give that job to yourself. It's a big commitment. You have to be serious about it and you have to be very ambitious when you are doing that, and you have to give yourself time, generally, both in Africa and in Europe. Of course, in Europe it's a little bit different, because before you finish your studies, you find yourself in that mood to start looking for jobs, and before you graduate, you find yourself with a job already. But back home, because employment there is a little bit scarce, so it's a little bit scarce, so you need to apply as many jobs as you can. In 6 months, in 3 months, you need to have sent maybe 50 applications or 20 applications, not less than that, so that you can get yourself, some chance out there. Thank you so much, Robert, again for coming to this episode. This was very valuable. I really, really value this kind of conversation, and I'm looking forward to welcome you again for another episode. If you have chance, you can come anytime. And so just to remind you, CFI sweethearts, that we will really appreciate you subscribing to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platforms. We are available on Instagram and on TikTok, so you can just search CFI Official Podcast. Thank you very much, and ciao, and bye-bye for now.